Yeah, I have to, yes. I need to tell the students how this program came about, and you're responsible for it. So I want to
Go right
dedicate,
ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I really want to dedicate this your lecture to Dr. Nick Ponzio, and we're going to be recording it and sending it to you. And the reason I want to dedicate this lecture to Dr. Ponzio, you may not remember, but when we first started to write the grant, we really did not know what we were doing, and you were the person we went to your office, and you shared information with us and you from your grant. And at the time you knew you were getting the grant, but you didn't have any official word. So when we wrote it in the application, we told them and how we were going to link to your program, etc. And we didn't know that the grant was going to be funded. And so we sent a resubmission, and this first grant that you helped us with, get funded. And this is the first year we just enrolled 10 students. After Nick Ponzio died, his family started a fund. So every year we'll have an extra students called Nick Ponzio Fellow as an underrepresented minority. Now, what I want to tell the students is that I don't have to tell you about the CTSA grant. Dr. Panettieri will tell you all about this. But the CTSA grant is fundamental to Rutgers. Because of his grant, you are in this program now with the CTSA grant. And my chairman, Dr. Claphole, is now writing a training grant for residents. And so he will be contacting Dr. Panettieri soon. But Dr. Panettieri's CTSA grant is just a hub of Rutgers now health sciences, transforming all their program now into training into clinician scientists. So today we're very lucky to have Dr. Panettieri. He's been here since 2015. He's the director of the Clinical Translational Medicine Center, and he's also the vice chancellor of RBHS. And he will tell you all this title. I should know, but I'm sorry, I just came off of an NIH study section.
No worries.
For 2 days. Okay, so Dr. Fitzhugh, she's an interim chair of pathology. You want to say something?
Good afternoon, everyone. Just saying hi and introducing myself, and thank you, Dr. Panettieri, for coming to talk to the students today.
Great.
Okay, it's all yours now.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all. Prunella, it's fascinating and wonderful to watch the development of this program. And I am pleased, and I can assure you that Nick is looking down with a big smile.
I agree. That I agree with.
Because he was really a force that he had vision, wanted this done, and wouldn't take no for an answer. So hopefully the students understand the value. My job in the next 45 minutes is to get you energized about translational medicine and science. I am Vice Chancellor for Translational Medicine and Science and Director of the Rutgers Institute for Translational Medicine and Science. I'm going to talk about what that means. And then within that context, talk about the CTSA. So what is the RITS? The RITS, first of all, in order for you to know, the M is silent. It's the Rutgers Institute for Translational Medicine and Science. We're going to talk about the RITS and NJX. NJX is our hub for the New Jersey Alliance for Clinical and Translational Science. Sorry for all the jargon, but it hopefully will become clear as to what these entities are. And we're going to talk about the Clinical Trials Office, which may not mean a lot to you, but as you develop your own careers, and some of you will do clinical research, the Clinical Trials Office is very important. And we'll talk about futures. So what is the RITS? Our vision is to generate innovations in disease treatment, prevention, healthcare, lifestyle for our communities. And it's to create the first New Jersey-wide institute dedicated to catalyze translational and clinical research. I'll come back to what that means. Provide research platforms, resources, staff, scientist training, streamline administrative processes, recognize diversity of the state's population and our students as well as our faculty, and recognize that the heterogeneity of disease really does determine one's response to therapy and propel transformative therapies, diagnostics to help our communities, not only in New Jersey, but across the country and the world. What we are striving to do is captured here. We want the right diagnosis for the right patient to get the right therapy. And sorry, that last line should be at the right time. What we have done in medicine is try a guessing game. Well, you may have this diagnosis and you may be responsive. That's not precision medicine. Precision medicine is the right diagnosis, patient therapy, and the right time all bundled together. Now, our institute translates things from a petri dish into hopefully new therapeutics. And I'm going to show you a platform that leverages that concept. This is called precision cut lung slices. I'm a lung doctor, a physician scientist. I see patients, but we've also developed platforms that leverage human tissue in an integrated manner to be able to discover new approaches. And here is our model. We've taken that model and implemented it over the last 10 to 15 years in a variety of manners, but I get human lungs shipped to us. These are aborted lung transplants, so they couldn't be suitable for transplant because maybe there's some lung damage or there were other complications that couldn't be used. And we take the lung, we fill it with low melting point agar on ice. There's a plastic sheet down so it doesn't stick to the lung. But then the lung, because it has low melting point agar, becomes solid. We're able to slice it. Down in the middle there, we can then core it and then put it on a very thin microtome to cut lung slices. You can see the lung slice there in the lowest, in the third row, and there's wires holding it in solution. And what you're looking at in the photomicrograph in the last slide is a human lung with an airway. Now the airway is critical for asthma work, but notice we have the lung open and it's tethered open by all the alveoli, those little circles. So what is the value of this? We can generate 500 to 600 slices per donor, and we can keep them alive for 2 weeks. The cilia beat, mucus gets secreted, and we can use that as a model, a human model for drug discovery. We can do pharmacokinetics, we can do pharmacodynamics. It's really a wonderful model. But the point I'm trying to make here is that we have the ability to deliver platforms that can rapidly translate novel therapies or diagnostics or biomarker discovery into humans. Now, we also in our institute have the opportunity to promote innovation. I'm one of 3 MPIs, that is multiple principal investigators, in the Rutgers Optimizes Innovation. Now, what is that? This is a program of entrepreneurism. Now, what you're doing in your respective unit or school is get education to get your doctorate terminal degree and then go on with your career development. Very, very uncommon is that in that process, you're learning to become entrepreneurs. How do you go through your career development, find a discovery, and then implement it into a new product? How do we commercialize academic assets? Well, this program, which is an NIH initiative, there's only 5 in the country, we were one of them, dovetails with our CTSA, which I'll talk about, but it can train one to become an entrepreneur, to interface with entrepreneurs in residence and mentors that allow you an understanding of how do you develop a new widget to help with commercializing the academic asset. Now, each of these dates suggests the novelty of how this could all come together in a perfect storm to let us go forward. Some of this started when RBHS was just begun as the umbrella facility for all biomedical schools. So what is this program? Well, this program is interesting because it takes basic research, and it informs the inventor, the innovator, a faculty member, even a student, to how does one build a business model. And what you can see is there's managers in residence. There's there are other business managers that get associated with the inventor to help that inventor move their process forward. More importantly, there are $50,000 grants and then $150,000 grants that you get awarded according to milestone achievement. Now, the core resources are things that you all may be interested in. This is online education of entrepreneurism, sponsored by the ROI, that is the Rutgers Optimizes Innovation. And it would give you a flavor in how you ultimately might take a novel idea and commercialize it as an academic asset. Now, just to show you, this grant has just started its third year of 4, and we've had 29 applications, and all these have gotten down to 7 that have recently in the last year been funded. And what it is an ongoing rolling admission of projects that allows one to become an entrepreneur. So at your stage as a student, you might be saying, well, Panettieri, why are you telling me all this? Because entrepreneurism starts early. Entrepreneurism starts early. And by just taking some of these courses, which are free and online, you get a flavor for how does one commercialize academic assets. Here we have a variety of grants that we've given out. And you can see in the last 2 years, we've given out $1.6 million in grants to foster commercialization of academic assets. So this is part of RITS, part of what I've just showed you in novel platforms. Now, did it really matter? Does these projects actually come to fruition? Well, here, I want to show you that one of our investigators who got one of the grants then got a follow-on funding for a near $500,000, and they were able to develop the first rapid sensor to detect COVID-19 by just breathing out into a tube. So does it matter? Will you get there? Answer: here we had an innovation that allowed us to move forward and is being developed as a product to detect in a simple exhaled breath whether someone has COVID-19 by using mass spectrometry. So let's now transition to NJX, the New Jersey Alliance for Clinical and Translational Science, and talk about this grant. This grant is a collaboration between Rutgers, Princeton, and NJIT. We are statewide, and we are the only hub in New Jersey ever. So we were very fortunate to be the inaugural hub. In Philadelphia, there's only one. There's another one in Harrisburg, another one in Pittsburgh. There's 4 of them in New York, that is Manhattan. So in this tri-state area, there's very few hubs. So what is a Clinical Translational Science Award? Well, it has 5 goals. And what's really cool, everyone, this is a service grant. We serve the community. We're not hypothesis testing. Now, I'm a physician scientist and I have my own grants and I do hypothesis testing, but this is a service for the better good of all of New Jersey in translational medicine and science. We train and cultivate a translational science workforce. We engage patients, participants, and communities. We integrate special and underserved populations across the lifespan. We increase the quality and effect and efficiency of clinical trial science research, multi-site trials, and use cutting-edge informatics. So what is this really, what is the structure? There are 13 different cores within our hub, and they take basic research, translate it to humans, to patients, to translate it into practice, and then into communities. It is one of NIH's largest infrastructure and training awards. To give you an idea of what translational science is, it comes in 4 or really 5 flavors: T0, T1, 2, 3, and 4. T0 is Petri dish work. Remember that lung model I showed you where we're taking lung models? That's discovery. I have a molecule, I put it into this assay system, and out comes results that might project a new biomarker or a new therapy. From T0, one goes to T1. That's translation into humans. Take the molecule and you do phase 1 safety studies, proof of safety. T2 is now you have a safe drug, it's been tested in humans, and now you ask the question, is it effective in a therapy? That's called T2 science, translation to patients, proof of concept. T3 is now the drug, your molecule or biomarker is FDA approved. Well, that doesn't stop the translation to get providers to use or participants to use the medication or biomarker, proof of efficacy. T4 is now you have a drug, it's safe, it works. You need to now address population-based outcomes. That is getting managed care or people to pay for the therapy so that you have proof of acceptance. So what does this mean? This schema goes from a petri dish to the bedside, the policy change, and it's not just molecules. This is for new drugs, devices, diagnostics, and even software. It is agnostic to a disease. This could be for any disease at any time. What we do in our institute in NJX is really push forward non-oncologic research. In a parallel system, Steve Labuti and CINJ does cancer research, and that's through an NCI designated comprehensive cancer center that is very akin to what NJX is, but we're all about non-oncology. So who is NJX? It's an alliance of academic institutions, Rutgers, Princeton, NJIT, but we also partner with industry, state, and the community. We're based in my institute, the RITS. I talked about the RITS earlier. We have 14 cores if it includes some of the educational cores, but very important for you in your career development, we give early career investigator awards called KL2s. That's a career development award that supports 75% of junior faculty effort along with $25,000 in research support. And TL1 are projects, are proposals for graduate students and postdoctoral fellows. So in your training, where you are in your school or your unit, there is opportunities to get an institutional training grant, which is 2 years of funding, 75% effort, or if you're a young investigator, if you now have a faculty position, a new faculty member, you can get an additional 2 years of support for 75% to support it. Now, our grant was a $29 million grant over 5 years, but it had matching that brought up the commitment of all 3 of these institutions to $45 million in the 5 years. Again, we've just entered our 3rd of 5 years. We can competitively compete. And we're looking for people like you, superstars, who want to move forward and become the next legacy of translational science. Well, what does it mean to write one of these things? Well, what I have on this counter is a photo of our grant that went in about 3 years ago. And these are 8-inch binders. That is the entire grant. That was double-sided photocopied. That grant was 4,300 pages when it went in. So it was quite substantial, as you can imagine, and it takes a village to write this grant, but we were very pleased on our 2nd submission to be awarded the grant. So what is the theme? And this is important for all people in biomedical schools. The heterogeneity of disease and response to therapy was really what our focus was. And what does that mean? Diabetes, congestive heart failure, asthma is not one disease. Within that name and label, there are many subtypes. So for example, if I'm devising a new therapy, I have a new diagnostic test. It works in a percentage of those patients with the disease, but not all. But it does redefine the disease or the therapy, and those that don't respond in an iterative fashion become the next group that we're going to fund and support. Now here you can see that heterogeneity of response to therapy is also important, which is interesting. That means everyone on this call will respond to a pill or an inhaler different just because of your genetic makeup, not even whether you have the disease. So there's heterogeneity in the disease and heterogeneity to response to any therapy. It's amazing with that differential effect, we ever get a drug approved. But if that all works, we go on to clinical research to look at outcomes, we change guidelines, and then we implement. But remember what I said, in T4, if payers don't pay for it and then managed care doesn't adopt it, all that work becomes naught. There's another very important point, is this linear approach is markedly influenced by social determinants of care. That is, those patients of low SES or underrepresented groups in certain environmental conditions also overlay on the heterogeneity of response to therapy and the response to in their heterogeneity in their disease process. So this is complicated, but it clearly was a basis for our beginnings of NJX. Now our cores are shown here. We have an administrative core and we have an informatics core. The informatics core is a large data core that encompasses not only big databases like CMS data and other big EHRs across the state, but it also allows the investigation of bioinformatics. That is big data from, for example, metabolomics. That informatics is key to the operation of the other cores. We have a community engagement core, which is incredible. This takes community-based organizations as partners so that we can meet the needs of the community in a bi-directional manner. We ask them what are the important questions. At the same time, we utilize them to leverage participants in the studies. We have a workforce development and pilot studies core. To pilot studies, we give out $640,000 a year in pilot grants. The workforce development is really from where you're at as a student all the way up to faculty member who wants to be retrained in translational science. We offer a biostatistics and epi core. All of this, by the way, can be accessed on NJX, our website. You can see each and every one of these cores. We have an ability to look at special populations, a variety of special populations for doing clinical research. Our network capacity allows us to do clinical trials in a harmonized and streamlined manner. We have machine learning and biomarker cores. Again, these cores are there to serve you. You can access for free consultation as well as access other services. Now, what I have highlighted here is what's immediate to you as a junior faculty member or as a trainee, postdoc, graduate student. There's opportunities to get funding at the institutional level, and that will allow your own career development. Now, Rutgers Institute for Translational Medicine and Science is the administrative home, and I'm the director of that. But you can see across all these bubbles that virtually every school that is represented on this call is also represented in NJX. So I really I suggest you check out our website, NJX, to really access any and all of these. You can see that New Jersey Institute for Technology in Princeton our CLEAR Alliance members along with Rutgers. But this is really my team, and this is all the co-leads that exist for NJX. I'm very pleased to have such an unbelievable group of colleagues. And you know what? They are dedicated to service, to improving translational science across the continuum at Rutgers and across New Jersey. I'm sure depending on your school, you'll see people that you recognize. They're all part and parcel of NJX. So one of the most important aspects of what we've done over COVID is build cohorts. Our NJX built the first healthcare worker cohort. This was a longitudinal study that started in February of 2020, just as we had the first case of COVID in New Jersey. We recruited 5,200 participants and studied the natural history of the disease in first responders. This is 5,200 healthcare workers at our hospitals. We looked at the infectivity, and out of this, we've amassed 42,000 biospecimens. We were pleased and really fortunate to obtain a grant that Shauna Hudson is pioneering for us, which is studying community-based approaches to COVID testing in vulnerable populations. This study is ongoing. We're comparing community-based organizational training or education in getting testing versus using healthcare workers in the community that is in their homes to try to foster better training. We also competed for to a post-long hauler syndrome grant. We were the participants and provided RUCDR with the specimens necessary for their designation as the first emergency utilization authorization for the saliva testing nationally. We participated in the J&J vaccine trial. By the way, we were the second highest global recruiter for the J&J vaccine trial. In 6 weeks, we recruited 840 individuals. I laughed because the third group highest recruiter was Columbia. And when I say that, people look at me and say, "Oh, I didn't realize Columbia University did so well." No, not Columbia University. The entire country of Columbia was third. We did more than the entire country of Columbia with vaccine trials. Active 1 and 2 are NIH interventional trials and 18 others. We have a ton of grants that we have submitted, many that are still pending, and our publications in the last 6 months are included here. Many of these are COVID-based just because we had to pivot with the pandemic, but we did meet the need. Now, this I want to share with you because you know what I do and the publications I get are going to wane in 5 years because people forget who you are. Our legacy as mentors is our trainees. You carry on where we end. That is the single most important contribution any investigator could give with regard to translational science. Our KL2 awards, we get 4 of those a year. We just finished our second class of 8. We get 13 KL1 awardee members a year. Our pilot grants, we've had 27, and that represented $640,000 per year in pilot grants. Again, if you go to our website, NJX, you'll be able to see the categories of pilot grants that one could compete with. So what's next? Well, we have stood up the first clinical trials office that will go across all of RBHS, and it has one role: to improve the efficacy and efficiency of the startup process for a clinical trial, to enhance recruitment, to assure compliance and standardize our policies and procedures. This is the vision. We have a clinical trials office that lives in the chancellor's office, but it's managed by my institute. And this is the first time one office can execute studies, have responsibility for regulatory affairs, and have the requirement of a business office and also get contracts. And then one group all focused on one thing: first patient, first visit to get the study done. Now we are employing some very interesting platforms. Encore Enterprise is a clinical trials management system that allows us to track every step of a clinical trial. Deep 6 is a machine learning artificial intelligence approach that could take inclusion and exclusion criteria for any study and mine the EMR, actually our electronic health record, to find particular participants who qualify for a study. The regulatory affairs, we now have stood up a brand new scientific review board. This is very important for your work, because as you need to understand how to write an IRB protocol, the scientific review board, staffed by 20 faculty, are actually sponsored. Their salaries are paid to help people evaluate their proposal to improve it before it goes to the Rutgers IRB. By doing it this way, we guarantee better applications going to the IRB, so we're not in that back and forth. We get things done quicker. Now we have our own contract lawyer who can do actually the contracts with sponsors to expedite the use of it. Now, we are not an IRB, but our scientific review board, once it approves, will fast track through the Rutgers IRB to approve the proposal. Very important. Our goal here is to decrease dwell time. Now, the scientific review board will provide and advise investigators on the development of IRB protocols, help evaluate the protocol for merit, feasibility, and quality, ensure they meet the accrual goals, manage the competition for small study population amongst overlapping eligibility, make recommendations for investigator-initiated studies with scientific merit, and make policy and procedural recommendations to myself and executive management in the development of trials. This will serve you in helping you refine your proposals to the IRB. Again, you can find this resource on the NJX website. So does it work? Well, what I'm going to show you here is our data for getting participants in studies from 2018, 2019, and 2020. We stood up 2020. This was the first year, full year, that we had a clinical trials office. Well, even from the back of the room, you can see in 2020, we had 640 participants and 1,044. And this was in only one of our clinical research units. We have 4. And this, we recognize a 7-fold increase in the pediatric subject enrollment, that's on the left side, and a 3.5-fold increase in our adult participants in the study. This is a remarkable change. And remember, this was happening in the midst of COVID, when most non-COVID studies were closed. We still recognize the tremendous increase. Now, what we are interested in doing is even taking this one step further, because what we learned in COVID is maybe we can do virtual clinical trials. We've partnered now with Vault and Infinity Biologics. These are New Jersey-based groups to develop a platform using eIRB and e-clinical report forms and virtual visits for interventional studies anywhere in the country. Vault has providers in every state with regional pharmacies. We have 2 ongoing studies, the first of their kind at Rutgers, where the entire interventional study, a placebo versus a real drug, is being done completely virtual without ever seeing the patient physically. And these are non-COVID studies. We have a pool of over 3 million participants that can be contacted for clinical trials using this virtual clinical platform. And we're very excited if we can roll this out successfully to be a national and potentially international in scope. So that was a whirlwind tour of the RITS, how it dovetails with NJX to improve outcomes amongst our alliance members, and most importantly for you as a student, to be incredibly enthusiastic about what you do. You as an investigator, if that's what you choose to do, is really going to not only help the patients in front of you, but happen to help the hundreds behind that one patient, because you're changing a new biomarker, a new approach, a new device, a new software. I never go one day to work because what I do is not work. What I do is what I love, and that's to inspire junior faculty, students to follow in the footsteps of a lot of very smart people, many smarter than I, but to be able to realize the dreams of helping people in their health and in their disease states. I want to thank you all. It's fabulous to be able to kick this off. And Prunella, again, I want to thank Nick and you for your incredible dedication with only one goal: to help our students become better. Thank you. You're on mute.
Lauren, can you ask everyone to unmute? You can unmute everyone so they can clap.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, this was really good. The students are very lucky. So students, you hear what you get a good insight of you can be the next Dr. Panettieri. The student will also have a trip. Nick arranged this while he was in the hospital for them to take a trip to Johnson & Johnson. They'll get to meet physician scientists there. They'll get to visit the CAR-T lab. They'll get to visit. And here, Dr. Einstein will give them a tour of the clinical trial initiative at New Jersey Medical School. So they have a great, before I open it, the question, I want to ask you a question. I was really excited about this community program. This is the second time I heard you talking about this link to the community. So can you tell us a little what that program is?
Thank you so much for asking. Shauna Hudson and Al Talia are our co-leads in the community engagement, and we have just an outstanding group. Manny Jimenez is also involved, and we have many people in Newark involved also. This program has really embraced a partnership with community-based organizations. We have over 50 community-based organizations who are part of our community engagement. They are readily accessible, and we deploy into those CBOs in two directions, really. One is to ask the community, what do you need research to help? And second, we ask them to be participants in research, but not simply as a subject. That's the worst thing. We want them to be a partner. What we promise is when you're engaged in a research project, and we solicit citizen scientists. These are people who are actually doing some of the data collection primarily, who aren't scientists themselves, but are so enthusiastic to do it, they do it. What we guarantee is before anything's published, before any of the findings are even put in abstract form, we share it with the community so they understand the answers we derived from the questions they asked. And only at that point do we ask for permission to be able to publish this in a general form. And what that means is you're really a shared decision-making, and you're really a partner in the discovery and exploration. I think that's so incredibly important, because when a participant enters a study, they're really putting themselves on the line in hopes of getting an answer. And you know what? Often there's no benefit, there's no direct therapy that's going to come to that individual. Because if it's a phase 3 study, you don't even know if the drug's going to get approved. But they trust us, and trust is incredibly important in research. Now, we're very thrilled that we have a JAMA network publication coming out early and Heroes, NJ Heroes is the project that we talk about, the CBO testing. And what was fascinating is we asked a lot of questions. We asked focus group questions on what was their impression and their trust level of certain communities, government, federal government, state government, Rutgers, with regard to testing and vaccinations. And we were really pleased that in our sample, using over 100 participants in tens of focus groups, Rutgers' trustworthiness was very high. They believe what Rutgers tells them something. I could say that the federal government was a little less than that, but it was nice to hear that we were at the top of the list. That means we've earned trust.
That's amazing, actually.
Yeah, wait till you see the paper. The paper will be unencumbered in early July. We capture impressions, and remember, these are underrepresented minority individuals about frequency of testing. There'll be a lot of insight, and there'll be several press releases when it gets unencumbered.
Yeah, as soon as it gets out, I would like to discuss this paper with our students, actually.
I think it'd be very valuable. This is mixed method science. I'm a molecular pharmacologist. That's out of my bandwidth. But what Shauna does is mixed methods, and she's done it excellently.
So, Lauren, I see a lot of questions in the chat. I don't know if there's questions in the chat box.
Not really seeing questions, more thank yous.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the kind words. People were really very kind. Thank you.
I think Umberto wrote something. He wants to be involved in the community.
Yeah, sorry. He said that Umberto wrote that he's interested in the community program idea.
Umberto, can you tell maybe Dr. Panettieri who you are? What? He must be here.
I'm here. I was just behind the scene, trying to be behind the scene, Dr. Ramsford. Yes, I was interested in the community partnerships. I run a nonprofit organization in Newark, and I have applied for the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation on CRC research in Latino communities in Newark. But now I also see that you also provide community initiatives and CBOs. That'll be something that I would like to do in the city of Newark itself. Not only have a nonprofit that deals with youth and families, but also was elected last week as a commissioner for Hispanic Affairs for the city of Newark. So I think that trying to understand the needs of Latinos, whether it's cancer or research or any of those activities, will help in the social determinants of health and better outcomes for our community.
It's incredibly important. There's a wonderful network, as you know, in HIV in Newark that has really leveraged CBOs in that area. But I would highly recommend that you reach out to Manny Jimenez at Robert Wood Johnson. He's in pediatrics. Also to Shauna Hudson. I mean, she could give you a tremendous amount of detail and granularity on what's being done up in Newark, and much of that paper I just described was African ancestry as well as Latinx, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And she's very approachable, so please reach out. We would love to extend our reach into Newark in community in CBOs.
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, we're working right now with the Department of Health on trying to get more Latinos vaccinated. Even though the numbers are high for the state, the numbers of Latinos vaccination rate is still low. So for the last 3 weekends, we're being out in the North Newark community, which is 7% Hispanic, and trying to get them to at least make one step forward, at least to the first vaccine, so we can get to 70%.
You know, I think you play a critical role being able to be in that community and discuss it. We too have been disappointed in our Latino participation, and even Manny Jimenez, he's out there in the streets and in communities, but for some reason we haven't connected as well as we had hoped to connect, and I don't quite understand the intricacies there. So any insight you could share will be most welcome to expand the program. That's great.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll definitely connect.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else with any question? Doesn't seem anyone have. What a great kickoff we have with this program. Dr. Panettieri, I know you're busy and I really appreciate this.
It's my pleasure. I wish everyone the best of luck. You can always reach out to me.
Yes,
If you were bashful, you can find my email address. It's on NJX. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm very happy to be available and to help you in your career development.
yeah.
Wish you
thank
all the very best.
Yeah, thank you. We'll keep you informed about the program.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Lauren, anything else with the program for today?
Yeah, I'm gonna continue with the students here. We're gonna do some more of their brief update on what it is that they're gonna be working on this summer.
Lauren, we only have 10 minutes. You don't want to give them a break?
Yes, I will give them a break and then we will return.
No, can you really give them a break? Period.
Hold on.